Hey guys, this is Joyce. Welcome to Medusa Was Framed. I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to share with you some of the world that I operate in here. I am a massage therapist by trade, though what I do, most people wouldn't consider massage. In my pre-COVID life, all of our lives have changed so much, went to massage school because I wanted to work in pro sports rehab. I wanted to be that person that was in the medical tent next to the tennis game, backstage at the football game or the hockey game or the finish line, or in the athletic training room putting you back together after you broke yourself on the field. That requires a lot more education than just what you get in massage school. That requires hundreds of hours and many thousands of dollars of education after you get your massage license. Just like going to be a nurse or any medical professional, you get the basic education, and then you build on that and develop the way that you want to work in your field. So the things that I did were classes that included PTs and OTs and athletic trainers and nurses and surgical assistants and things like that. And so I was never one to rub oil on muscles, but actually work on fluid movement through lymphatic drainage and craniosacral, or joint work osteopathically, that type of thing. I accomplished what I wanted to. I was the person that was in the medical tent at the finish line. I was backstage at WWE. I was in the athletic training room working in the chiropractor's office with the injured athletes at a university here in Florida, and all of those things. And COVID took all that away. But all the time that I was studying these very medical, kinesiology-based, performance-based modalities, I was also studying the things that just simply interested me. And sound was one of them. Sound and energetics, the concept of frequency, and how that does affect fluid movement, how it does affect cranial sacral pressure, how it does affect the piezoelectrical power and potential in joints, in the movement of electricity through your system, which is basically what the basis of acupuncture works on. So anyway, all of those additional classes that I took along with the heavy-duty medical ones in building my career, all those classes that I took on things like this, on tuning with singing bowls, sound, and energy work, what people would call Reiki, but what I do is far beyond Reiki, now has paid off to be very beneficial, because this is primarily what I do. I do more of this work, both in person and remotely. But part of the beauty of this work is, and always has been, this is something that is not new. Sound is the oldest form of medicine on the planet. Mothers sing lullabies to their babies. They rock them too. Vibration. Sound is vibration. You rock a baby to sleep. That's how you calm it down. You sing them lullabies. Sometimes all a baby needs is to hear the voice of its mother or father to calm down. Sound is real. Sound gets into the fractal of everything. Anyway, in the world of sound, certainly in the world of tuning forks, Jean Beaulieu is considered the father for all of it. He is a physician. he worked in New York in psychiatric hospitals, and that is where he started really learning about the power of sound and its impact on his patients in care. So what I wanted to start doing is reading from the book. I have many books on sound, but I'm going to start reading to you from the book that is considered the Bible in the world of sound. There's also going to be a link below to a company, Soma Energetics, where I have done a training as well. I've taken John's courses and trained with John. I've taken Soma Energetics courses and extensively and trained with them. All of my tuning forks either come from John's company, which is Biosonics, or from Soma Energetics, which, by the way, the forks are made by John's company, Biosonics. These are John's forks from his company, Biosonics. So I'm going to start reading this book. This is a very worn book that I have used a great deal. But I'm going to start reading this book and sharing it with you. And I think we'll do a chapter a day or a chapter a week. All right? So you can learn about sound. There'll be, as I said, there'll be a link below where you can access my affiliate link with Soma Energetics if you would like to purchase tuning forks. This book is readily available anywhere you look. eBay, Amazon, you name it. It's everywhere. As well as John's website, biosonics.com. Let's see. There's John. The father of sound. The father of sound therapy. So Human Tuning by Dr. Jean Beaulieu. Beginnings. We are sound. Imagine that the whole universe, everything we know, including cars, computers, airplanes, houses, buildings, lakes, oceans, continents, our bones, flesh, and nerves, is a foundation of dream images generated and sustained by a submerged sound. Further imagine that everything we do and think, whether good or bad, moral or immoral, is an attempt to seek out and merge with that sound. Our goal is to return to the source of the fountain. Although we may identify with the object of value, i.e., a man or woman, a car, etc., the real attraction is the resonance we experience when in the presence of that person or thing. The experience vibrates us like a tuning fork and becomes a sonic honing buoy, confirming our inner journey. Further imagine that you are being of sound, composed of many tones. Your shape, movements, desires, and motivations come from an inner concert. Everything you know and feel is sound. Your concert is everywhere. When you dance, your body organs will make sounds and your muscles will play the correct tones. Your voice will sing praises and the stars will shine upon you. The anechoic chamber, how I discovered human tuning. I discovered the tuning forks could be used to tune the human nervous system in 1974. I was working at Beaulieu Psychiatric Hospital in New York City under a research grant from New York University. A psychologist colleague of mine who knew about my interest in sound told me about an anechoic chamber located at New York University's Psychology Library. An anechoic chamber is a scientifically engineered room of complete silence and darkness. I immediately arranged to visit the laboratory in order to experience the anechoic chamber. I learned about anechoic chamber in John Cage's book, Silence. John Cage was a new music composer, philosopher, and author who went on a search for total silence. In his book, Silence, he tells of his experiences in an anechoic chamber at Harvard University. Sitting in total silence and darkness, he heard a high and low-pitched sound. Upon leaving the anechoic chamber, the engineer told him the high-pitched sound was his nervous system in operation. The low-pitched sound was his blood in circulation. The first time I sat in the NYU anechoic chamber, I immediately heard the high-pitched sound of my nervous system and the low sound of my blood circulating. After a few minutes, I heard swallowing sounds, stomach growls, mouth pops, heartbeats, air entering and exiting my nose and mouth, little clicks in my spinal joints, and even the sound of my eyebrows when I blinked. Over the next 2 years, I spent over 500 hours sitting in the anechoic chamber listening to the sounds of my body. I tested the effects of different tuning forks as well as mantras and toning, and recorded their effects on my nervous system. The sound that most interested me in the anechoic chamber was the sound of my nervous system. I observed that the sound of my nervous system was directly related to different physical, mental, and emotional states. For instance, if I was calm, my nervous system would make a low, even, soft sound. One day, after an argument with a subway attendant, I sat in the anechoic chamber and observed that my nervous system sound was higher pitched, louder, and had a screeching quality. After over 500 hours of listening to my nervous system, I suddenly realized that the nervous system could be tuned like a musical instrument. I went into a music store in Greenwich Village and bought C and A tuning forks, which were the only tuning forks available at the time. When I entered the anechoic chamber once again, I listened to the sound of my nervous system. I tapped the tuning fork on my knees and brought them to my ears. The two sounds instantly merged into one pulse, and I simultaneously noticed two very distinct, yet clearly related changes. I heard the sound of my nervous system change to match the sound of the tuning forks. I then noticed a shift in the way I held my body. I held the distinct experience that my whole body and the sound of my nervous system were one. I realized then that I needed more tuning forks. It was very difficult to get them in 1973. I was driving to a conference in upstate New York when a state trooper pulled me over for speeding. He saw my two tuning forks on the seat and said, "What are those for?" I blurted out that I was a therapist at Beaulieu Psychiatric Hospital and that I was doing research on sound and the nervous system. I think my nervous system must have been very loud at that moment. To my surprise, the state trooper told me to come into his car and bring my tuning forks. He called in my plates, and then suddenly, completely, something unexpected happened. He showed me his tuning fork. He had a 3,000 cycle tuning fork, which he used to calibrate his radar gun, the one that caught me speeding. He tapped it and turned a dial on the radar gun until the tuning fork and the radar gun came into resonance. He then turned the radar gun so I could see it and proceeded to tell me exactly how fast each passing car was traveling. He couldn't see the radar gun. He told me that when he was tuned in, he just knew the car's speed without even looking at the radar gun. I told him about the anechoic chamber, how I was using the tuning forks to turn my nervous system, and that I wanted to get tuning forks made to my specifications for research. He said he would find out who made his tuning fork and get back to me. 2 weeks later, he left a phone message with the same name and number of the sound lab we use to make our tuning forks to this day. I called them and they made my first set of tuning forks. I had them tune the forks to Pythagorean ratios and a lower fundamental tone than the current musical standard. Just in case you're wondering, the state trooper did give me the speeding ticket. I have never forgotten this experience. An important lesson was learned on that day. When working with sound, keep your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds. The 8 tuning forks I ordered in 1974 are exactly the same as the solar harmonic spectrum set we use today. I'll show you those later. My original work in the anechoic chamber were based on systemic experimentation with each Pythagorean interval. This is a form of research called phenomenological research, which focuses on the effect of tuning forks on consciousness. I approach the experience of tuning forks by keeping a journal with specific protocols to help me better understand my experience of the sound. Each week, I would sit in the anechoic chamber and immerse myself in an interval and record my experiences. I would relax, listen to my nervous system, and tune myself to an interval. I realized that each interval was a gateway into different states of awareness with thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Throughout this book, I have provided journals to help you systematically experience the tuning forks. It's important to remember that although the science and theory of tuning forks is important, the real teaching is in the experience of sound. The more you work with sound, the more you will learn. The following story illustrates the importance of the experience. In 2001, I brought my tuning forks into a lab at the State University of New York to test their effects. The biochemists were skeptical and made systemic preparations to measure the tuning forks for days. Within seconds, the computer graph showed the release of nitric oxide when we tapped the Auto 128 and vibrated a cellular culture. We did the experiment several times. Once it was clear that the tuning fork caused a nitric oxide spiking reaction, I passed out Auto 128s to each scientist. Let me just say, auto tuning forks look like this. I'm not reading, I'm explaining right now. Most tuning forks look like this. You strike them, the tines vibrate. But with an auto, short for osteophonic, there are weights on the top that force the vibration back down into the handle. And then what you do with an auto is you place it on your skin. So yes, you can use it as a tuning fork as you would this for the frequency vibration around the tissue. These are very powerful on the skin. So if you can imagine, an acupuncturist puts a needle in a certain point on your bioelectrical system, on your biomagnetic wiring. Imagine doing this instead of that needle. All the force that is generated by that striking is forced back down the tines of the tuning fork into the handle and then down into you. Very profound. This is not a 128, by the way. The frequency of this is 68, and it's damaged. I sat on it one day. But nonetheless, this is considered low ohm. This is a very effective frequency for calming your heart rate. So anyway, when he speaks of auto, it's referring to these osteophonic weights push the vibration back down so that you can place it on your skin. And 128 refers to the hertz of the fork. So let me find where we were. Okay, he's talking about nitric oxide. I passed out auto 128s to each scientist. They immediately began tapping them and putting them on their body to feel the effect. It was an amazing sight to see 3 scientists in white coats with tuning forks pressed on their heads. In that moment, I went from being Dr. John to the nickname of Vibrating John. The more I worked with tuning forks, the more I understood the sound of my own nervous system. Through this understanding, I began to visually see others as sound. That's how I see people as sound. I see all life. I'm not reading, I'm talking. I see all life as frequency and tone and plasma. I'm the same way. Sound has always worked very well for me because it made sense. It was like, oh yeah, this is how I think. This is how I make sense in the world. He said that the person's body movement were tight like a wound up string. Oh, wait, here we go. The more I worked with tuning forks, the more I understood the sound of my own nervous system. Through this understanding, I began to visually see others as sound. I thought this was unusual until a colleague described a patient as being very high-strung. I asked him why he used the term high-strung. He said the person's body movements were tight like a wound-up spring, and when he thought about it, he could imagine a high-pitched sound coming from the patient. I realized that hearing a person's sound related to body tone and posture was something we intuitively do every day. Our language is filled with terms like high-strung, low-keyed, in tune, out of tune, and resonate with that refer to a person's sound. Although I experienced the relationship between sound and the nervous system, posture, and consciousness in my experiments in the anechoic chamber, I did not understand how they were related. Today, after 35 years of clinical practice, research, and experimentation with tuning forks, I know a lot more. The goal of this book is to share that knowledge so that you can enter into the experience of tuning fork sounds. You will have the same thoughts, ideas, and insights to help guide you. I believe that there are many ways to understand the tuning fork sounds. It's my wish that you learn what you can from my original experiences and let the sound guide you to the next level of your journey. If you want to recreate anechoic experiments, there are thousands of anechoic chambers in different locations across the world. They are used for all kinds of research, from measuring electrical noise to measuring the quietness of automobiles. They come in different sizes, from a small room to a very large room. You can do a web search for anechoic chambers to learn more about them and their uses. You may even find one arranged to sit in it. However, it's not necessary because there is another way. Listening to the sound of your nervous system. To listen to the sound of your nervous system, find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. There should be little to no external sounds. Next, sit quietly, take a few deep breaths, and gradually allow your breathing to naturally rise and fall. When you feel relaxed and calm, bring your awareness to the inside of your head or cranium and listen for a high-pitched sound. This is the sound of your nervous system. It sounds similar to the high-pitched background sounds of a television, but even lighter. If you're under a lot of stress, the sound of your nervous system becomes a ringing in your ears. However, most of the time, it's in the background, and you just need to relax, clear your mind, and listen to discover it. The sound of your nervous system is a primary indicator of your current inner tuning. Listen to the sound as you would the sound of a tuning fork. The sound of your nervous system carries a lot of information. Use the following listening suggestions to get inside the sound of your nervous system and perceive its qualities. Feel free to keep a journal based on these listening guidelines. Does your nervous system sound loud, soft, shrill, wavering, pounding, or flowing? Does your nervous system have a color? Is it green, yellow, blue, red, etc.? Does your nervous system sound have a temperature? Is it cool, hot, warm, or cold? Do you have thoughts when listening to your nervous system sound? Is your nervous system sound saying anything? Do you get a specific emotion when listening to your nervous system sound? Does your nervous system sound want to communicate feelings? Is your nervous system sound taking you on a journey? Are there images, memories, stories, or visions? Do you hear more than one sound? If so, what is the relationship of the sounds? Are they harmonious or are they dissonant? If you hear more than one sound, listen to each sound separately and follow steps 1 through 7 as above for each sound. Then follow steps 1 through 7 for the relationships between the sounds. Once you get to know the sound of your nervous system, it becomes easier to listen to it. For example, you can listen to the sound of your nervous system before you go to sleep, when traveling, after a conversation, anytime you want. When doing this type of thing, do not try to change the sound of your nervous system. Neutrally observe the sound and its qualities in the context of the listening situation. By doing this, you will come to understand yourself and be able to experience the direct effect of tuning forks. Think of listening to your nervous system as the baseline for evaluating others, exploring different tunings and opening the gateway into different states of consciousness. Over time, the information, exercises, and protocols presented in this book will help you tune and retune yourself as necessary for both the healing and exciting journey of life through all levels of consciousness. So that's all I'm going to read today. That was the introduction. I'll carry on tomorrow, and I'll do a chapter a day till we get through that book. I will also bring my tuning forks up and interrupt, as I did talking about the auto, and give demonstrations. So, as I said, I am attaching a link below. I am an affiliate with Soma Energetics. So the link I attach is my affiliate link. If you are interested in purchasing any tuning forks, I would appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. Help me out with that. Yes, you can go to eBay, and yes, you can go to Amazon, and you can get cheaper tuning forks than you might find from Biosonics, Mr. Beaulieu's company, or from Soma Energetics, the forks that are made by Dr. Beaulieu. Yes, you can find them cheaper. There's a reason. It's the relationship of the metals that are alloyed to create them. Stainless steel tuning forks are much cheaper than aluminum alloyed tuning forks. But as we know, aluminum, being softer, has more vibration potential. It creates more sound. It resonates longer. Now, I have some stainless steel tuning forks. I bought an inexpensive set because I was curious to see the difference. These are aluminum alloy. This is aluminum alloy. This is aluminum alloy. They cost more because there's more work in putting them together. That's why they're more expensive. You can buy them cheaper. They're not as effective. That's all I'm going to say. If you would like quality tuning forks made from a company that has decades of history, then you would benefit from purchasing them from Dr. Beaulieu's company, Biosonics, or if you want to help me out, from the link below, Soma Energetics. So, all the leading people that are selling tuning fork education programs, Soma Energetics, Biofield Tuning, both of which I am fully trained with, get all their tuning forks from this guy right here. And there's a reason for that, because the specifications that he has created for the optimum resonance of the fork makes the difference. So anyway, I thank you. I encourage you, if you have any questions about any of this as we're going along, please feel free to leave a comment, or you can reach me on my email. That will be in the comments below if you have any specific questions. If you would like to experience some of this work, I am in St. Augustine, Florida, but I do remote sessions as well. And I can give you sample energetic sessions. The same way that prayer works, we work in the quantum. Frequency is not something that's just in front of you. It connects all things in the plasma etheric world, which is how free energy works. Anyway, enough of that. If you have any questions about that or my work, you can check out my website. And yeah, so thank you. Feel free to reach out. I will read chapter 1 tomorrow. And so thank you from Joyce at Medusa Was Framed. I'll see you tomorrow.